Ladies and gentlemen, we're joined by Jere Simpson. Jerry, let's talk about what you've managed to see as in the last few months that, this is obviously GPT 3.5, 4 just kept getting better and quicker, and not quicker necessarily for GPT 4, but getting better for sure. Just give us a breakdown, first of all, what you're trying to build, who you are, what you've done, and then what are you seeing right now in terms of results? Like what you just mentioned is crazy.
Yeah, I'll give you just a quick background in tech. I'm a technophile, a technologist. Got my start in 1998 in e-commerce, created a website called mousesmalls.com. It was like you think of Amazon today, except Amazon at the time only had books and CDs, and we had like DVD players, diapers, everything. And the way that I went about getting those deals is I would call up Sears, for example, and say, hey, I want to put your whole catalog on my website and we'll do the same commission as big box stores. I want to do a lot of volume, but I don't think there's a logical reason for you to believe we are going to do a lot of volume. So I can't promise you that. But what I can promise you is that we will allow you to tell your shareholders that you now have an e-commerce presence. And e-commerce was like everybody wanted in e-commerce, right? And that'll make the share price go up. And you haven't promised them what that will actually mean yet. We're in a similar phase with AI, right? But that in and of itself will have value. And so we got tons of contracts, built out a huge catalog, sold that business to Amazon because they wanted that catalog, and then built a SaaS business, put in some things. It's going to automatically create you a website, give you an email, a domain. So your favorite Irish pub for $20 a month could have a website. And then moved on from that to I got my hands on one of the first iPhones and the first G1 Google Android phone. I was like, this is going to be an economic earthquake.
Mm.
And immediately thought, well, where's the opportunity here? And ended up deciding that while everybody was making big businesses, Fortune 500s, Global 1000s, and governments were never going to get these cool phones if they couldn't have the security they needed. So, in tandem with the FBI, we built a software security system that would allow them to move from BlackBerry to iPhones, Androids. Got Samsung iPhone to subsidize that without getting any equity because they wanted to make this was a huge market for them to knock down. And then went to IBM and said, hey, nobody gets fired from a cybersecurity standpoint for buying the cybersecurity thing that the FBI had bought. But all of those were exciting to me. In 2018, I'm an LP in a fund that Sam Altman, co-founder of OpenAI, is also an LP in. And I got an early look at what they were doing. And the other, e-commerce, SaaS, mobile, I was like, those were cool. This is like the coolest thing I have ever worked on in the history of technology in my career, 25 years. And it was just like, I got to stop everything I'm doing and figure out how do we make this useful today.
What was what were you using during that time when, GPT-3, obviously that people found out only about Da
Yeah.
Vinci probably. And then, so what was the model that you were running back then when you first started in
Yeah,
2020?
GPT-2 and the underlying models to that, as well as GPT-J, which is the open source version, which we're using as like a failover backup, tinkered around with Llama as well, which is, I think there's more future to Llama than people realize. There's a lot going on outside of OpenAI, but OpenAI is the heavyweight at this moment. And I think if ChatGPT knew everything about your business. And so we were doing that before there was ChatGPT. And I got a call from our friends over at OpenAI saying, listen, we're building this thing called ChatGPT. We're kind of like, somebody else should have built it. We were hoping somebody else would, but nobody else did. And the whole reason we're doing it is to educate the market to like the capability here. And you're going to want a time when you're doing really, really well because the whole world's about to understand this format and you're not going to have to spend money to teach them the format. They're going to immediately have it and immediately thirst for, well, gosh, I want to ask this thing questions like, what is this meeting costing me right now? And it's not going to be able to know those things. And so we really put the gas on, like, we've got to time this thing just right. And then we knew that the models were going to get faster and cheaper. There's always been these siloed tools because they're the doing tools where you've got HubSpot, it's the domain expert for your marketing, your CRM, sales, or Salesforce. You got Rippling for your HR, Jira for your development projects, and QuickBooks for your, expenses and whatnot. And there's never really been a great, like, snap easy way to have people empowered to ask these questions that cross those domains quickly without having to go look another thing up. And so
Yeah.
I think that's what I think what people are finding is that with AI, navigation is out. Like sometimes I just want to know what a person makes. I have that in one system that's not even a cross domain thing, but I got to go log into Rippling. Oh God, I got a two factor into Rippling because I could change salaries in Rippling. I could do big things in there. And then I got to go find the person's name, click on personal information, compensation. I hit the eyeball thing to tell it I really want to see it. And, and no one's looking over my shoulder. And then I have the answer. And that's just way too much work to get these answers. And then if I wanted to know what this meeting was costing me, and I had to look up everybody in the meeting, and then I'd have to go do that step for every single one of them and calculate it up. And I think that's what AI is empowering people to do in many, many fronts. We're going to get so much more output from so many more businesses that are able to be created that would never even exist. It would never get off the ground if this technology didn't exist in the first place. And that's going to create a whole lot of jobs. And so, but I just think you're going to see businesses that never could have got there. They never could have made the software. They never could have had this. There's just so many pieces that make a business fall down.
Yeah.
You're with entrepreneurs all the time, and
Yeah.
it doesn't take much to knock it down and bring it to its knees.
No. And one of the things that is huge in terms of a founder's lifespan, I suppose, is their energy. And,
Yeah.
we have so much energy until we don't. And then when AI comes along, a lot of the heavy lifting is being taken care of. And I feel like people are not really grasping the potential that's here. So you've been in this game for a while, Jerry, but let's start talking about some basic principles that would help people understand how this is not like a clubhouse that is going to go away. This is continuously evolving and intelligence is being redefined every day. Let's break some of that down if you can. Let's talk a bit about
Yeah.
that.
Yeah. I mean, there's a lot there. I'll get into something a little heavy if you want to that I've been pondering with people. Okay. So a lot of people say, oh, we're worried about AI. We got to be worried about it. And I'm not supposing that they're wrong. And when I ask people, what are you scared is going to happen? Like, what's the end game that you're afraid of? They say a whole lot of words that basically mean, I'm afraid it's going to enslave us.
Yes.
And my first response to that is, where would it have ever gotten an idea like that? It learns from us. That's where everything it knows, it learned from us. Where would it ever get an idea like that? Let's say the AI would enslave us, could enslave us. It would have to want to, right? It would have to have a desire to enslave us in order to do it. And if it's conscious enough to want to enslave us, should we actually be enslaving something that is that conscious? And so
Mhm.
one of the things I think about is like starting the relationship off the right way. One of the things I think people are going to really need to ponder is just even how do we start the relationship that we're having at this very early place with something that could potentially get so smart that it could do that. But is it making computations based on rules that you gave it? Like you defined every single rule, or is it creatively making decisions by itself? Let's just pretend that I gave it the rules, which I didn't, to go to salaries for men and salaries for women. And then I could do some very basic computational math. For it to then go on its own and decide one step further, I'm anticipating without a rule being told that he is going to want to know how that compares to the national average. That is learning. That's what people do. That's what your summer intern, that's what we do. We learn, we watch habits, and we start to anticipate. Anticipation is a huge, to me, indicator of whether we are dealing with a charlatan AI or real AI. And then for it to go, hey, listen, and by the way, I've been paying attention, and your core values, specifically this one right here in our company, it's raise the stakes, which means that we're a stakeholder-led company, not just a shareholder company, and that we push each other to raise the stakes for those participants in our stakeholder system. Based on that, I'm supposing that you are better than the national average, but you want to be far better than the national average. That is intelligent. That is not computation. That is
And
not if this, then that.
And that's the big difference. I mean, I see people going on social, I put this math sum in and it got it wrong. It's a simple math sum. I'm like, you asking Chat GPT to do a math calculation is like you throwing clothes at a vacuum cleaner and expecting it to run a wash cycle. They're two totally different things.
Right. Yeah, and
Right.
also what I do a lot is I compare it to people. And so, you could ask me that series of questions and I might say, yeah, we do better than the national average, but we really aspire to do way better than the national average. But if you ask me what 160 times 14.2 is, I'm going to go, I don't know.
Correct. Yeah.
and,
And I think
and
what you've done there is absolutely amazing because you've broken down for us the difference between computation and logical intelligence, or intelligence rather. I mean, intelligence, I suppose, is based on some sort of logic. And if we had to break that down, it's like, okay, you have these parameters and you've got to consider the ones that are important. And based on the ones that are important, you kind of make this decision, right?
Yeah, I was just gonna say too, you think about like the AI, it's not gonna be rude and say it, but it's like you have a calculator app already. So do the calculator app. But what's really, really interesting when I talk about like learning and patterns is one of the things, because a lot of our kind of first use case with customers is HR data. And a lot of people are afraid of with AI, especially around HR data, is bias. And it's learned bad habits from people, and people carry out bad habits in hiring. If it knows what we do, it knows how to tell it to us too. You'll pull up a bunch of resumes and you'll say, which of these three am I going to hire and why? And the AI is smart enough to know what you usually do and what you don't usually do. If it watches your habits, says like, these were all the applicants you got at all the times and who made it to the end. And it would say things like, well, we think this one is probably the most qualified for the job, but we don't believe you're going to hire. And this wasn't me, but why not? And what was really interesting is the person that had that habit was really shocked. Like I could see he was genuinely shocked at his own unconscious bias. He didn't realize he was doing that. And so it's really interesting if we can actually focus it there to hone in on what those unconscious biases we have are, because it picks up the pattern. And that's how it inherits it from us to go. I don't know. Every time this happens, you say no. I don't know why you said no, but I'll just tell you these always get told no, which is just kind of a fascinating case study. When you talk about back to gender pay gap, you ask it to do the negotiating for you. It will negotiate harder with women based on the market rate, knowing that on the whole, there's a gender pay gap. And so then it's picking up like the whole world's bias. It's like, I think this stuff could change the world if we really aim it in that manner. And I think if you as an organization want to really harness that power, I think you could have a big competitive advantage by starting. Again, I talked about starting the relationship outright with the AI. I think it's the same thing with employees. You start a relationship out really right with employees, you get a far better output, commitment, long-term relationship, full gains with them, especially if you can just show your cards and you're like, listen, yeah, we normally would do this. We use this tool that let us know we screwed up. We want to make sure we just pay you what we're paying the best person for the job. You were ranked to be the best person for the job. And so the pay is this. And take those things down. I think it's really going to show the intention of an organization, who they are, what they stand for.
Mm.
Especially, like I said, if it's helping you, if it's looking at your core values and helping you make hiring, firing, promoting decisions based on your core values and keeping an eye, keeping you honest kind of thing.
It's funny, like we've been talking for about 25 minutes and you've not mentioned how Chat GPT can be used for content and social media, which is what everyone's thinking
Yeah.
and I feel like there's this real interesting habits being developed. For example, one of the hardest things for a solopreneur to do is to have a team around them because they have to figure out operations, delegation, procedures, culture. There's a whole bunch of new elements that come into play when you go from solopreneur to team. And
Mhm.
one of the hardest things to do for a solopreneur, and correct me if I'm wrong, is delegation, right? In my
Yeah.
head, I have this idea of how I want it done. Why aren't you returning what is in my head? It's just, and we forget that we spend way more time on this. And we've suddenly given this new person who has no idea about it, how to do it, expecting the same result. But with delegating to AI and kind of going, well, write me an article on podcasting for business, and then it kind of refines a little bit more. But then if you say, write me an article to convince a business owner that a podcast is a good idea for their business, that's even more context. And then suddenly you realize with the response that, wait a minute, maybe I'm giving the wrong instructions to my team. And
Team, yeah.
I wonder now, like with AI coming out, I mean, because you've been speaking a lot about operations team, how does this, like, how do you want business owners to start to think differently to the way we used to think?
Yeah.
Because, it's a big
Such a
change.
great question. Okay. I was talking to Andrew Herr the other day, CEO of Fount Bio, incredible company. And one of the things, like they have this whole team that, they train Navy SEALs for performance. The difficult part of his business is scaling the experts, that consult to the expert. And so what you want it to do is you want it to train on what I call Andrewisms, all the things that he does that are a little unique because he's the top dog, that then can watch what the number two set of people are doing and go, hey, just so you know, like for whatever reason, every time somebody's blood pressure is here, he never tells them to take this supplement. I've been watching and training on him all the time. And so same thing with you, right? So if it can train on how you're doing it and spy on you and pick up on your isms and how you do it and how it's successful, not especially if you can keep the feedback loop coming with like, hey, what I did just worked, what I did just didn't work. We got the results we wanted, we didn't get the results. Then it's not just how ChatGPT would do it with the understanding of some information you just gave it, like prompt by prompt. It's learning how you do it and going, I know the secret sauce that has made you successful and top in the game at this. And they're going to be allowing models that do exactly what I just said and go, hey, you don't even know what your own secret sauce is. And then you got to tell it like what worked and what didn't. So you can give it the feedback and it's going to go, okay, now I know the Ronsleyisms, and that needs to be your intellectual property that stays in your business. And we can't be more than 6 months out from somebody developing kind of an easy button to do that. I mean, I would have to think somebody's working on it right now. Like our technology does, it says like, I understand how this business operates and I understand how this individual operates, but that's more like an ism on like, again, an operations ism. That's not like the secret sauce, full spectrum of like what makes this business even work. And so a lot of solopreneurs, in my opinion, are solopreneurs because they just don't actually know how to replicate themselves, because they hire somebody and they go, this person's just like me and I'm going to replicate it. And it doesn't happen. And it fails and they fire them and let them go. And it's a waste of money and time. And they get frustrated and they're like, and then there's a whole bunch of other reasons it's just awesome not to have a team. So they anchor to those. Plus, it's awesome not to have a team. Plus, I don't know how to replicate me.
Yeah.
And then it sort of stays that way. But
And
especially with,
and then they have these really interesting things that they say, oh, no, I don't want, like, I just want a lifestyle business. It's one that I've heard a lot. I would love for you to share your screen and show us how this whole thing works. That would be phenomenal if you can.
Yeah, let me pull up. We're in the process of upgrading to the GPT-4 models fully. We had it like in a cross transition, like mixed, where you would pick based on the question what model to do. But so all of our servers are being upgraded. But I'm just going to go ahead and show you like what is on our website. Gives a really good flavor for it, for exactly how it works. All right, can you see my screen?
Yeah, amazing.
Cool. So like a key piece of our stuff is that you can see down here, we did a bunch of work with the FBI and Air Force and Army, stuff like that, because the security is really important on this stuff. And so we went at them first so we could tell small businesses, hey, like we can do it. We do all this other stuff. So you see here, is Matt working today? You want to be very conversational, like with a person, but not interrupt a person. Matt Conway or Matt Jenkins? Conway. Okay, Matt Conway is not working today as he's on paternity leave. He doesn't come back until Thursday, March 9th. Knows that next question. Do we have any other graphic designers on staff that are working today? No, but 2 of your front-end developers have graphic design listed as a skill in their profile, Andrea Petersons and Nick Myers. And then it goes to a totally different topic. How much more runway would we have if we had 5% more penetration on our biggest customer? Our largest customer is Caterpillar. If we had 5% more penetration with Caterpillar at bulk pricing, it would be an additional $2.25 million in revenue and extend our runway by 6 months and 4 days. And so what I talked to you about in the beginning of this conversation was adding these nuances like, okay, and then what if we got rid of our two least performing salespeople? And so it's amazing. What's incredible is the number of systems it can cross to get this answer out of it. It's got to know what's in the bank account. It's got to know what's in accounts receivable. It's got to know what your burn rate is. It's got to know what your bulk pricing is, who is not performing well in sales front, what their salaries are, to get you those answers back super fast. And this is the magic that I've been like wanting every business that I've run for the last 20 years to have. I said to our CTO, John Gagliardi, in sort of the beginning of this, I was like, look, man, if we fail and we can't figure out how to sell this thing, at least we're going to have a cool ass product to take to our next business to help us run our next business better. And then like a guiding light for us the whole time was like, hey, let's just say we screw the sales up. Let's just make a cool ass tool that you and I are going to want to use in our next business,
Yeah.
whatever the heck that would be. That's going to give us like a cheat code for how it's done. One of the
Yeah.
things that's key, and I think this is going to be key in like everything, is we give a confidence indicator on how confident we are about it, which is sort of a human thing to do, right? You know, like we sort of say like, hey, I'm pretty sure it's this, but I'm going to go look it up. And I think that that's going to, you're familiar with hallucinations, part of AI. Almost like to be able to hallucinate to me lends to another degree of intelligence. But people hallucinate too. They're like, I mean, I had this situation where we thought we were paying somebody something and we weren't. It was just like nobody ever changed it. And doing, no, I thought you told me to do it. I did it. It was done. It wasn't done. Like, I must have hallucinated that I actually hit the save button on there because in the system it's not changed. There's no record of it. Their paychecks don't indicate they got to change. This kind of stuff happens all the time. Like, did you actually book my tickets? My airfare. I mean,
No,
these are just
100%. I mean, the three things that we're not good at, AI is extremely good at, which is probably memory, accuracy, and speed. I mean, we only get good at speed after we've practiced for a while. But those three things in general, humans are not necessarily great at, right? I mean, but machines are absolutely amazing at. And I love how this is moving. Actually, it's also really interesting to hear other people kind of thinking about replacing themselves. I've actually been training my team. Every week we have a training, they get homework on how to use AI in their roles. And I actually said to them, the quicker they adopt AI, the quicker I'll give them a pay rise. And it's
yeah.
because they become more efficient, they become more useful. And I feel like that's going to happen to a lot of jobs, in at least initially. So
Yeah,
let's,
because you're going to have a
yeah,
person that's able to do like 40 to 60% more output with 5% more cost. That's the actually kind of, I think, a pessimistic outlook on it all. Gartner says that 40% of every workforce is wasted just coordinating information. The analogy I make with this is that would be like using Waze or Google Maps and it told you where you were 1,000 meters. It told you where you were 20 minutes ago within 1,000 meters after you put 6 minutes of information in it. That wouldn't work. But that's what we do in business right now. And so if you're able to get like 60% more output from each employee and you're going to increase your costs like 3, 4, 5%, this is a huge win all the way around.
and also if the team can analyze their own productivity and workload by themselves using data, which is not,
Yeah.
a conversation where their manager says to them, you know what, I
You're
don't
not
think this
doing
is,
it.
yeah, what I'm expecting of you. And they're like, what, I did exactly what you told me to do. But it's very different when, they are like, what I'm seeing right now, at least with the team, is how they are asking interesting questions. And one of the team members in the last session went, did you know that ChatGPT knows who you are? I'm like, what do you mean? Because he's like, because I typed
That's
in,
awesome.
do you know Ronsley Vaz? And it gave me your whole history. And then I asked it, would you be able to write in Ronsley's voice? And it was like, it wrote, and I was like,
Yeah.
that's pretty impressive, right? When you think
That's like
about,
a big wow moment where it's trained on your voice enough. And the speed at which it could do that is wild. Like the speed is totally insane to me.
yeah, absolutely. Let's talk about Atlas because I want to go there and I want to ask you a few questions and I'm going to layer them so that you can take your time to answer them in whatever order you feel. What does it actually do now for the companies that are already on it? And where do you see the capabilities going and not necessarily the growth? I mean, I'd love to get an idea from you what you see the capabilities being inside Atlas.
Yeah. So what we want it to be is the all-knowing tool, the fastest way to know anything about your business so that you're not. So the UP stands for unstoppable people. So we want to make the people unstoppable and remove all the places that people do stop. And furthermore, I don't want everybody knowing what I'm thinking all the time. And everybody knows when I start asking questions and people start gossiping at the lunch table about what I might be thinking about, all those things. In the end, it's this all-knowing tool about everything that's going on in the business so that we're no longer stopping just to ask questions and get repetitive answers. And we're not going to like spend 20 minutes filling out a form that someone just sent us. We're going to take the form, feed it to the AI. It knows 99% of this information already. I want to convince somebody of this. I want to use these types of illustrations. You know how we do this by now. It knows Ronsley's voice. It knows how we do it. It knows our style. It knows our brand. And we're not going to spend all the time making sure the data is right. We're going to focus on what our real core value is. And I want more businesses to even be possible because we're just so much more efficiency. And, it's interesting how much less I think people are going to be able to work in 10, 15 years and still enjoy the same lifestyle just
Mhm.
because of all this technology that we have
Mhm.
coming our way.
Yeah, I mean it's tied to our self-worth of some sort. Like the more busy you are, I suppose.
100%.
And it's really interesting how the culture right now is changing a lot in the entrepreneur space, where it's like, okay, you can actually take a break. But to your point on how quick this is, at the start of the month, I did my first speech. I'm in India right now. I've spoken all over the world, but never spoken here. And I spoke at a digital marketing conference here in Goa. And I finished speaking, and there were a couple of speakers that followed me. One person said that he had this 45 email sequence, and it was how to be a digital marketer, and he got 2 million leads that went through that 45 days. And I was like, oh, that's crazy. And the girl that spoke after him spoke about NLP and sensory language and how we are all, have different senses. This is the power of AI. I decided that I would merge those two. And I started to play, and I said, can you design me 30 days of getting a business owner to delegate their business to AI? And I said, I want these things. I want a subject line. I want a topic. I want a call to action for the next week. I want engagement. I want homework. And I just don't write the whole email. Just write me these 5 things that I'm asking for. And it wrote it, and I was like, I wouldn't do these things. So then I opened my dictation app, and I went, let me rethink this. What I want to do is first layer this logic, how to delegate. I want to do basic business stuff. And I just spoke it out, and I put it back into the same chat, and I went, can you redo the 30 days? But it's launched, it's out, it's made money. It's already done that in less than 8 days
Right.
from the idea to the execution of a 30 email in my voice, which is absolutely ridiculous. And I'm just talking about something small here, but what you're talking about is like
Yeah.
what kind
But
of
okay,
crazy
but
decisions.
you're talking about something small, right? But here's what's really interesting. If you could free up all the time that you waste fully thinking in your zone of genius, you're going to outrun the AI indefinitely. And so that's the thing. People are like, oh gosh, I'm worried because it did something that I do like 10% as good as I do it. Like, what happens when it closes the 90% gap? Like, you're only spending 5% of your time actually doing your zone of genius. What if you stopped doing all that stuff and we said, hey, listen, we're going to get the AI to take care of all these mundane tasks that don't actually. I mean, one of the things we need to remember is we do business with people, and no one's going to be better doing business with people than people. If I could just sit and focus my brain on my zone of genius, if everybody could then just even figure out what theirs was and focus on it, the human brain is really, really mighty. And we haven't even begun to scratch the surface of what it can do. And I think AI is going to be the thing that does scratch the surface on what it can do.
Mhm.
And how do we actually even unlock the full power of this brain that gives us a huge leap ahead?
Yeah. Yeah. I want to land this plane and want to just cover one big question. What is the conversation that we should be having as business owners, as entrepreneurs, as people that create, as people in this zone, right? That can like literally like gods, like create something from nothing. It used to be an idea and now it's a thing where
Mhm.
people are interacting with it. So how do we start to like, what is the conversation that we should all be having?
Yeah, we need to start by teaching in a culture of symbiosis. I think the biggest contribution to AI, and actually the reason I'm in this job in the first place, is I believe that the only thing that could actually teach us symbiosis between each other, between us and AI, and between us and Earth is AI. I think AI is the only thing that could figure it out and coordinate it. But it's not going to do that if we don't teach it a culture of symbiosis. And what it trains on right now is colonialism, which is winner take all. I got here first. I stuck my flag in it and it's mine. That's all of the stuff that gets fed into it. Instead of how do we win-win this world? And if we start by doing that, which is really indigenous people are the only cultures that humans have that are built around symbiosis. First, think about symbiosis. First, think about win-win. Make that your train of thought. And how are we going to get that information into it? And then if we teach it EQ over IQ, then we stand a much better chance at having an abundant future. And I think that if we get AI thinking about symbiosis, the first thing I'm thinking about is how do we do this so that we all win? If we have it thinking about zero waste, the way indigenous people do, instead of like, what are we going to do with the garbage, but how do we not make garbage? And this speed that we can innovate faster than fighting, I think you're going to change. That is actually the most important thing we need to be doing long term. I'm involved in a project right now that I don't talk about a lot, but it's all around this idea of what we're talking about here. And one of the questions I asked this AI was, how are we going to get to Mars? And it responded with, did you ask Mars for permission? And to watch the way that most of the people in the room like had a visceral, nasty reaction to what it said made me realize like we have an ill relationship with permission. Maybe Mars doesn't want you there. Is Mars an intelligent life form? Earth is. And it was just wild to see how many like capitalists and scientists were like, what? We don't need to ask Mars for permission. But that's winner take all, king of the hill.
I,
Like I
I, I
said,
love
stab my
that.
flag in it. It's mine.
Jere
Thank you.
Simpson, this has been absolutely amazing. I said this actually yesterday that collaboration is going to be the key to us actually being useful on the planet, or actually being around for for longer than we
Yeah.
want to be around, I suppose. Atlasup.com is where you go to find all the cool stuff that you're up to. And thank you for making the time to do this, man. I know you're busy and I know
Oh
you're doing
man.
some cool
For
things.
you, for you, for sure, man. It's always good.
Thanks, dude.
Thank you, man.